3 days before my 30th birthday, the venue called to confirm the final head count for my party, only to tell me my mother had canceled the entire reservation, wiped out the non-refundable deposit I had paid, and rebooked the hall for my sister's dog's adoption anniversary. When I confronted her, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "Your sister needs this win right now, Evelyn. You've always been the strong one, so stop being selfish." That was the exact moment the final thread snapped. I didn't yell. I didn't shed a single tear in front of them. Instead, I smiled, picked up my purse, and made a decision that would unravel our entire family dynamic within 48 hours. They thought I was just throwing a quiet tantrum. They had no idea that walking out that door meant I was taking the one thing holding their comfortable lives together with me. My name is Evelyn, I'm 30 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the designated adults in my family. As a corporate project manager, my entire life has been built around solving problems, managing chaos, and keeping things running smoothly, a skill set I perfected not at work, but in my own home. When the venue called to inform me that my mother had canceled my birthday reservation, it wasn't just about a lost party. It was the moment decades of invisible sacrifice finally caught up with me. Sitting in my car outside that empty venue, staring at the refund confirmation sent to my mother's email, the fog completely cleared. I realized that being the strong one was just a title they gave me, so I'd carry their weight without complaining. But every pillar has its breaking point, and mine had just arrived. To understand why a canceled birthday party made me walk away forever, you have to understand my younger sister, Chloe. Chloe was the family princess, perpetual victim, and master of artificial crises. My entire childhood was spent in her shadow, not because she excelled, but because her endless drama demanded every drop of our family's energy. When I graduated college with honors, the dinner was canceled because Chloe had a fight with her boyfriend. When I landed my first big promotion, my mother spent the entire celebration talking about Chloe's newest failed business venture and how we all needed to pitch in to help her. Every milestone I ever achieved was treated like a minor footnote, while Chloe's smallest hiccups were treated like national emergencies. Over the years, I normalized it. I convinced myself that being self-sufficient meant I didn't need the applause, that taking the high road was the mature thing to do. But taking the high road for 20 years just leaves you walking alone on a very cold path. The birthday incident wasn't a sudden burst of anger. It was the final drop in a bucket that had been overflowing for a lifetime. What my mother and Chloe completely forgot during their little power move was a critical detail. I wasn't just the family's emotional garbage disposal. I was their invisible financial engine. 3 years ago, when my mother was facing eviction after another one of her irresponsible financial decisions, I stepped in. I put the lease of her apartment in my name, paid the heavy security deposit, and set up automatic transfers for her rent, Wi-Fi, and utility bills. I did it out of duty, assuming my support was built on mutual respect. But as I sat in my car after the phone call with the venue, the cold reality set in. They didn't respect me. They relied on my convenience. They assumed my generosity was a permanent feature of my personality, something they were entitled to forever regardless of how they treated me. That evening, I logged into my bank portal. With a few deliberate clicks, I canceled every recurring transfer, removed my credit card from their shared accounts, and notified the landlord that I would not be renewing the lease in 2 months. They thought they were stripping me of a birthday celebration. They had no idea I was revoking their entire lifestyle. Most people expect a confrontation to involve screaming matches, slammed doors, and tearful ultimatums. But true finality is usually silent. I didn't call my mother back. I didn't text Chloe to demand an explanation or demand my deposit back. Instead, I spent the rest of that afternoon executing a quiet, deliberate withdrawal from their lives. First, I changed my primary phone number, a number I'd had for over 10 years, and transferred my work contacts over. Then, I systematically blocked their phone numbers, email addresses, and social media profiles across every single platform. I reached out to my few mutual relatives, the ones who always acted as my mother's flying messengers, and politely set a firm boundary. If my name was brought up, the conversation was over. Next, I drove to my mother's apartment while she and Chloe were out celebrating Chloe's dog's event with my stolen deposit money. Using my spare key for the absolute last time, I retrieved the few personal heirlooms that belonged to my late grandmother, packed them neatly into my trunk, and left the key sitting dead center on the kitchen counter. I didn't leave a dramatic note. I didn't leave a lingering trace of resentment. As I turned the lock and walked down the hallway toward the elevator, a strange sense of stillness washed over me. For 30 years, I had carried the weight of people who would never step up to carry me. They truly believed I was just having a quiet mood swing, that I'd cool off in a few days and come crawling back to fix everything like I always did. They had no idea that the door behind me hadn't just closed, it had been sealed forever. The reality of my absence didn't hit them immediately. For the first 48 hours, my mother sent smug text messages to my old block number, expecting me to break first. But then the first of the month arrived. The apartment Wi-Fi was the first thing to go dark. Then came the notification from the landlord stating the rent payment was past due, followed by the automated warning that the utility accounts were no longer backed by a valid credit card. Panic set in when Chloe tried to charge her subscription services to our shared family plan, only to find the card declined. Desperate to reach me, my mother contacted my aunt, playing the heartbroken parent whose ungrateful daughter had suddenly vanished. But when my aunt reminded her that I had explicitly requested space, my mother's fake grief quickly turned into unhinged anger. They realized I hadn't just gone quiet, I had cut off the oxygen to their comfortable, subsidized existence. Without my financial safety net, the fragile illusion of their stability shattered overnight, and for the first time in their lives, they were forced to face the real-world consequences of their own choices. 2 weeks later, the desperation reached my doorstep, literally. Unable to reach me by phone or email, my mother and Chloe showed up at my corporate office during lunch hour. I was walking through the glass lobby with 2 senior executives when I heard my mother's voice echoing across the marble floor. She marched toward me, crocodile tears streaming down her face, while Chloe stood behind her recording on her phone, ready to capture my cruelty. "How could you do this to your own family?" my mother wailed, loud enough for half the building to hear. "We're being evicted because you're throwing a temper tantrum over a party." Old habits tried to pull me into panic, but my inner project manager took over. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I looked at her with complete, detached calm. I politely asked my colleagues to step into the elevator, turned to the front desk, and quietly signaled corporate security. As 2 guards escorted my mother and sister out of the building, screaming threats and insults the whole way, I realized I felt no shame, only absolute, undeniable freedom. 6 months have passed since that day in the lobby, and my life has transformed into something genuinely peaceful. My mother and Chloe were forced to downsize to a tiny 1-bedroom apartment they actually had to pay for themselves. Without me stepping in to cushion their falls, they were finally forced to grow up and take responsibility for their own lives. As for me, I celebrated my 31st birthday last month. I didn't hold a massive party or look for anyone's approval. Instead, I took a solo trip to Italy, sitting by the Amalfi Coast with a glass of wine, entirely at peace. Walking away wasn't easy, and breaking those toxic family bonds felt terrifying at first. But choosing my own self-respect over being an emotional and financial doormat was the best decision I ever made. Now, I want to ask you, have you ever had to walk away from a toxic family member or set a boundary that changed everything? How did you find the strength to do it? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below.